sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. This is a show in which I, Virginia Jones, stand-up comedian, talk about important stuff with my sister, Laura Ryan, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. And this is what she sounds like.
Hi, I'm Laura Ryan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. My main credit is sister to joke juggler Virginia Jones.
Laura, this week it's your topic. What are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about hashtag goals.
I think it's good to set goals, but it's always the same couple ones. I'm going to read more. I'm going to
lose 100 pounds.
I'm going to lose 100 pounds. I'm going to lose 200 pounds. I'm just going to be a reed in a skirt.
I'm going to buy a house. Usually it's about big financial goals and really unrealistic health-related goals. That's what I'm noticing mostly. Or I'm going to stop this compulsive behavior. I'm going to quit drinking. I'm going to stop biting my nails. These are the calls that I'm receiving. I'm going to stop smoking. Yeah.
I have stopped setting New Year's goals, really. Sometimes there'll be one thing or another that I'd like to spend my year focusing on. I think this year I am focusing on enoughness.
Be more specific.
Just the knowledge that in the capitalist hellscape that we live in, I have enough. I don't need to constantly be chasing the dopamine high of online and in-life purchases.
So what I hear you saying is you're going to stop making compulsive purchases. You could potentially be one of my clients because I received that phone call as well.
What about you? What do you think of New Year's goal setting? Do you have anything that we won't call it a resolution, but is there anything you'd like to focus on this year?
I'm just going to focus on survival this year. Last year was pretty tough just living here in the United States. So I'm just going to try to get through this year and see if I can have some fun moments.
Yeah. As we gird our loins for the political hellscape we are looking for in 2025, I have been trying to remember that this is my life and I can't spend all of it living in fear and dread. I'm only messing up my own life.
Don't you forget, it never ends.
I want to be active. I want to be supportive of my friends and family members. I want to help out when I can, but I can't spend the next 4 years just twisted up in anger and agitated. It doesn't serve me.
Maybe that's your goal.
Maybe that's my goal.
With so many committing to goals for the new year, the hope and optimism that change can happen is in the air. The reality is, however, that over 90% of New Year's resolutions will be abandoned within just a few months. Have you heard of the app Strava?
Oh, yes. It's a running app, right?
Yeah. So they have an official holiday called Quitter's Day, and it is January 17th.
Wow. 3 weeks.
That's about what I experience with my clients. They'll make this big resolution at the first of the year. They'll quit by the 17th, and then they'll wait 2 to 3 months to call me to try to get back on the wagon,
right.
Which if you attended my family pub quiz, you'll know.
It's about water supply.
It's about dirty water. People were saying that they would rather drink the dirty water off of the wagon than drink alcohol again. Mm-hmm. According to licensed clinical psychologist Terry Bly of LA Mental Health in Mendota Heights, Minnesota, as humans, we do tend to be optimistic in the face of evidence. So even if we know the success rate of resolutions is low, or we fail to keep a New Year's resolution in the past, each new year offers hope that this time our resolutions will finally stick. So what are your thoughts on that?
One thing I find funny about the phenomenon of New Year's resolutions is the calendar is made up. It's this idea that you're turning a page and you're starting this fresh new year full of possibilities. But it's only because we decided that this was when the 365 days a year ends. It's meaningless.
It's made up.
It's made up. There is no new year any more than there was an old year. It's just more time.
But what about the old man in the diaper who turns into a baby?
I think the old man is not supposed to be wearing a diaper, but you're right that if we go by how people age, you're going to be wearing a diaper in both scenarios.
Right. At the beginning and the end.
I think it's human nature to say, new year, new me, I'm going to be a different person. But especially as we head out into our 40s, we're like, well, what are the odds that I'm going to really change anything about my life at all?
Yeah, with each passing year, I find out more and more that change is really quite challenging.
Change is challenging, and it's above and beyond the desire to make a change. You are the person you are because of the experiences you've had, because of the life you're leading, because of the responsibilities that you have. There's a reason you didn't spend 10,000 hours last year learning to speak German. There's a reason.
There's a lot of reasons.
There's a reason that you are not a flamenco guitar player. It takes more than just the desire to do it.
Exactly.
You sent me an article called The Psychology Behind Why New Year's Resolutions Fail. One of the biggest issues with New Year's resolutions is that they revolve around huge changes like our eating habits, getting more sleep, or becoming fluent in a new language. Where we go wrong with resolutions is this idea that it's supposed to be this big sweeping change because that sounds kind of sexy. But as humans, we're not wired to make big sweeping changes. In order to change a behavior, you have to be uncomfortable, and nobody wants to be uncomfortable. So in order to see a lasting change, you have to be in a state of discomfort for a really long period of time. People tend to set resolutions that are really big, and they might be achievable, but there are probably 30 steps they needed to take before they needed to get to that place. And so they make it unattainable by not setting smaller, more immediate goals. Usually, New Year's resolutions are optional things. So if we hate doing it, any goal we set is just pain, and we're not really sure what the reward is going to be, we're not going to do it. For example, if our resolution is go to the gym 3 times a week, but we hate going to the gym, we won't meet our goal.
So what are your thoughts on that?
In my rejection of the idea of New Year's resolutions, I don't wait till New Year's. If there's a behavior that I want to change or there's something that I want to incorporate into my life, I just start doing it. Because time is an illusion. Lunchtime, doubly so, as Douglas Adams once said. 2, what this article is saying, and I think it bears thinking about, don't just jump into the big thing. Do incremental changes. The things that you're going to be able to do are the things that you have built your life around doing. For example, in my current building, my gym is in my building, and that's so good. That's the easiest thing to do. I don't have to get in my car. I don't have to figure out what hours they're open. I've removed a barrier.
So it's barriers to entry that we have to work on.
If you say to yourself, I'm going to become an Iditarod racer.
What is that?
It's the people who have the sleds and the dogs and they go mush mush. Your first goal shouldn't be, I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning and get on a sled with 12 dogs strapped to it. Your first goal should be, I'm going to start getting dogs.
I'm going to get a dog.
Yeah.
I'm going to begin with a dog. Or I might begin with starting to do the research of finding a dog. Have you heard of the stages of change model?
I have not heard of the stages of change model. Have you?
I have. So I'm going to talk about it. A lot of times people will call me when they're ready to take action, and that is the best time for them to call me. But a lot of times people will call me when they're in one of the earlier stages. So here are the stages of change. This one I experienced just last week. Pre-contemplation. You're starting to become aware that there may be something to change. So that is not the time to call me. You're not ready to actually take any kind of action. You're starting to think about thinking about making the change. Then we have contemplation. You're thinking about making the change. Then we have preparation. You start to put a plan together to make a change. Then we have action. You are making the change. So that is the time to call me, is when you are ready to make the change. I had a client not too long ago who called me with the belief that they wanted to stop smoking. And this happens a lot. They'll get to a point where they think, wow, this is really bad, and it's making me sick and I need to stop doing it, or their partner is nagging them or something like that. And then they'll come in, have a seat. So step 1 for quitting smoking is that I need you to give me cigarettes, lighters, ashtrays, any paraphernalia. I need you to give it to me now, and we're going to throw it in the trash. And they balk.
Right.
Because they are not in action. They are in pre-contemplation or preparation or something like that. And then the final stage is maintenance. You determine how to maintain the change, because that's another really important piece. I can quit smoking tomorrow, but if I don't have a plan on how to maintain that, I am going to fail.
I smoked for many years and I quit many times. And I'm very familiar with the feeling that these people are experiencing, which is, oh shiz, this is serious. To say, I want to quit smoking, I want to be healthier is one thing. And to say, I'm throwing away all of my lighters, I'm throwing away all of the stuff that I need to smoke cigarettes, it's a very different
kind of commitment.
Yeah.
But I also feel like, okay, you've booked 2 hours with me and you've paid about $300, and that's not enough to get you to throw away your cigarettes. Why did you do those other things if you didn't want to do the obvious thing?
A thing that you've talked to me about, because this is coming up on a busy time of year for you and you get a lot of calls, but you don't always get a lot of appointments, because many people, if they say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to find a therapist. Once they make the call, their body is like, oh, we did it.
Yeah, they feel relief.
Or they will say, oh, I want to get in shape. And they'll buy a gym membership, which is the easiest thing to do. And then they won't go because their brain was like, well, we did a thing.
We were moving towards the goal. It's happening.
And now
it's probably already happening.
It's probably already happening. We're not even aware of it. So that's a fun thing about human nature, is that incremental change not only is necessary, but incremental change can be enough for your brain to say, oh, we did that.
Yeah, the human brain is not great with getting things done. It's good at feeling excited about not getting things done, but it's not great with actually completing things. Have you heard of the book Nudge by Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein?
Why don't you tell me about it?
The thing I like about Nudge is that it talks about things in sort of micro habits. For example, I am currently in the preparation phase of going back to my gym and swimming. And the reason that I know I'm there is that my headphones are here. They're charged. I've loaded music on them that I can listen to. I have a lock for my locker that I've purchased recently. I got a new swim bag. I have a new pair of goggles. I'm ready to go, but I need a nudge to get me closer.
When I was training for the Portland Marathon, I would sleep in my running clothes. I would have my shoes next to my bed. And when I got up, the path of least resistance was to put on the shoes and leave the house.
It's hard to sleep in a bathing suit, but
you shouldn't sleep in a bathing suit. It's not good for you.
But what I'm realizing is what I used to do is I would just wake up, immediately put on my bathing suit and put on a robe and just take my kid to school in the robe. So I need to start doing that again. It's just been very cold. I've been resistant to that.
Comedian Jen Kirkman has a bit that I think about a lot when she was trying to get in shape, and she would work long hours at work. When she started trying to make micro changes to getting back to the gym, she would put on her gym clothes as she left work. And then she would think to herself, what am I going to do? Get in the car and drive straight home in my gym clothes? And then I'd be driving home in my gym clothes.
I also had that experience when I would just go to the gym, because my workout clothes are clothes that in our current society are socially acceptable to be wearing. A bathing suit and a robe, however, are not. So sometimes I would say I'm heading to the gym, and then I would go, you know what? I'm going to run by the store real quick. And I could do that because I was wearing regular clothes. Now I can't do that. So in a way, it's a nudge that moves me closer to getting to the thing. But the idea of nudge is that I am not going to go from 0 to 100 in 10 seconds. I need to start creating little nudges to get me closer to the thing. So there's another book by James Clear called Atomic Habits that a lot of people hate. One of those people is a woman named Alice, and she wrote an article called My Problem with Atomic Habits by James Clear. James Clear is not actually an expert qualified in anything. He is just a white American man on the internet. He has a blog and a newsletter, which became very popular. This is his big brag. He has styled himself as a, quote, expert on habits and decision making. But what does that actually mean? Definitely not that he knows how to write a decent book. In the opener of the book, he describes himself as hyper-organized, disciplined, and he finds it easy to build good habits. This blew my mind, because how would someone whose brain works like that, who hasn't had to try, be able to help someone like me, who has never been able to long-term stick to a routine of good habits? He hasn't really done hard research to test his theories. He is not an expert. He is just a guy dispensing advice based on some articles, social media posts, and a couple of books he's read. I just hate these lazy quote-unquote books. They're just extended blog posts with no research or citations. They just treat readers like idiots, and I feel stupider for having read it.
Alice is a hater.
Alice is a hater. But in this case, I agree with her. If you want to refer back to our self-help, we talk about people like James who actually aren't really qualified to talk about their self-help topics, because he's just a guy who has never struggled in this area, trying to tell people who have struggled in this area how to do it. That doesn't make any sense.
But what James has done is, this is the method that worked for him. And so that's the only thing he can really speak to. This is the thing that I did, and it was helpful for me. Maybe it will be helpful for you. You don't have to be a doctor to do that.
And I remember a lady I follow on TikTok who has an adult diagnosis of ADHD. She was talking about the fact that she'd been reading these self-help books about getting motivated and getting stuff done her whole life. But she realized that really she had lived her whole life driving a 75 Pinto, and Her parents had equipped her with the tools that she would need for her 75 Pinto when it was going to break down every 10 minutes. So she'd learned how to like function with this Pinto, but all these people who are writing these books were driving Teslas. And so it is hard when the person who's supposed to be dispensing this incredible advice has no idea what your point of view is. And I think Atomic Habits is a great concept, but I'm not sure that it actually pans out in reality. Like all mass marketed self-help books, it is too vague. And just because the thing was the thing James Clear liked doesn't mean it's going to be the thing that helps Alice or you or me. Elizabeth Perry wrote an article called Setting Goals for Success, 8 Steps to Actually Achieving Them. According to research published in Frontiers in Psychology, more than 1,000 studies have shown that setting high and specific goals can improve task performance, persistence, and motivation compared to goals that are easy or vague. This is where SMART goals come in. Virginia, what can you tell us about SMART goals?
All right. SMART goals is something that I learned about when I was working at Nike, because when you wrote your job goals for the next year, you couldn't just say, I'm going to make fewer errors or I'm going to do a better job. You needed to be SMART, and that means specific. Your goals should be clearly defined without leaving room for ambiguity, so you know exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Measurable. You should have specific metrics in place to make it clear when you have reached or are close to reaching your goal. Attainable. Realistic goals must be within your reach based on the resources available to you. Relevant. Your individual goals should contribute to your overarching idea of success. In the workplace, this might mean aligning your goals with your company-wide aims. And time-bound. Every goal should have realistic deadlines so you can pace yourself accordingly to meet it on time. You can't just say, I want to lose 30 pounds, because by when? I guess tomorrow.
Well, I always tell people who say that, let's cut your leg off. I bet we get at least 80 pounds.
Is that attainable for most people? It is measurable.
Yeah, it is. You stand on the scale with your one leg and the numbers are lower. I do this with couples too. I do a thing called behavior change requests. And so if I'm going to make a behavior change request of my partner, it has to follow this format. It would be specific. So let's say that my goal for my partner is that he compliment me more. Measurable. I want to have 1 compliment daily. Attainable. That's something that I think my partner could do. Relevant. A compliment would be something about me specifically. A compliment would not be women are great. It would have to be about me specifically. It'd have to be about something that I had done for him or whatever. And then time bound. Every day at 8 a.m., I need a compliment from you, because that's a lot easier to stick with than just saying, be nicer to me.
Another thing that I'm concerned about in goal setting is when you're talking about specifically weight, which I think a lot of people are talking about. You can't actually control that. You should do something that you can control. You can't say, I want to lose 20 pounds, 30 pounds. You can say, I want to ride my bike consistently. You can say, I want to make better food choices. I want to eat a vegan diet. I want to drink more water. You can do behaviors that might contribute to better health or weight loss. But to say year in and year out, I'm going to lose 20 pounds is setting yourself up for unhappiness, because
unless you're willing to amputate a body part.
Yes. And I mean, get serious. Stop effing and jeffing around. Cut off that leg.
If you want to see the number on the scale show up the way you want, cut off an arm, cut off a leg, have a major surgery of some kind. Then, like you said, ride my bike more. That's too vague. It has to be at 7 a.m., Monday through Thursday, ride my bike for 17 minutes to work or something like that.
Well, my goal is, if it's not raining and the temperature is above 40 degrees and I don't have anything after work that prohibits me from doing so, I'm going to ride my bike to work.
That's specific, measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant, and it's time bound. So something that I learned from Gail Matthews is that writing down goals makes them more tangible. A study conducted by Gail Matthews, psychologist, found that people who write down their goals have a better chance of accomplishing more than those who do not write down their goals. The study also showed that sharing your goals with others helps keep you accountable, and it can increase your odds of success. When someone else is watching your progress, you may feel more motivated to keep the commitment so that they don't see you fail. Try making an action plan. Try creating a goal ladder. This life planning process involves writing your main goal at the top rung of the ladder and making each of your smaller goals rungs that lead to the main goal. It can also be helpful to make a to-do list and actively check off each step that you complete for a greater sense of accomplishment. Adding due dates for individual steps can also help stay on track.
All right. Let's do an example. What if my ultimate goal, the thing that I ultimately want to do, is I want a pet monkey? What's the first step on the rung? Is probably learning about monkeys.
And what I call it chunk size. So you have your big chunk, which is me holding. Is it a Capuchin monkey? I don't even know.
Let's say Capuchin because they're so little and cute.
So my ultimate goal is to hold a Capuchin monkey in my hand, preferably one who wears a sailor hat. So step one might just be to find the sailor hat, because that's something that I could have as a little reminder of my ultimate goal. It was something that was kind of easy. I like to start with the gimme things. Get the hat.
Step 1, hat. Step 2, book on monkeys. Step 3, get some monkey food.
Step 4, do some research about, is a Capuchin monkey something that I could potentially keep in my home? Do they live in the environment that I live in? Are they comfortable here? One of my big goals when I was a child was to have I believe it's called a tarsier. You can fit it in your pocket. It's really small. It's adorable. And when I was in junior high, I became briefly obsessed with them. But then I did some research and found out that they're completely nocturnal. They only live in outdoor environments. They can't really adjust to living in a home. And I think there were some legal issues about bringing one across. So after I did a little research, I found that this was an unrealistic goal.
And that's another good one. Find out if it's legal in your state to own a monkey.
Yes. She was calling it this ladder, but I call it chunk size. So we have the big chunk, which is the big thing I want. And then I break it down into the tiniest possible meta bits. And then I try to address each of those meta bits.
That's good because you are defining what success looks like. I think a lot of people in showbiz have showbiz goals, and they will be something like, I want my career to be better. Well, what does that look like? What are the things that you're going to achieve that will let you know your career has improved? I know people who want to do more shows every year. My friend Brandy every year publishes a photograph of her calendar with the number of shows that she did that year circled. So she can absolutely track how many shows she did last year, how many shows she wants to do next year.
So if we were going to use that, let's say I want to be a more successful comic. So I'm going to say one of the standards could be, I want to appear on the Jimmy Fallon show. So what is step 1 for getting on the Jimmy Fallon show? Buying an outfit that's cute, because then I can also help my excessive spending and make it kind of fun.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so how sad that you get to that 5th step and find out you can't have a monkey, and now you just have that sailor hat to remind you.
I think you got to probably do the research first before you invest in the hat. So making a list of potential barriers that could arise in your journey. I also do this with a new client. So for example, let's say you are coming to me, let's just use stopping smoking because it's a low-hanging fruit. You're coming to me because you want to stop smoking. So I'm going to ask you, okay, so have there ever been times in your life when you got a couple weeks in, or even maybe a couple months in, what was the thing that got you off track? And how can we prepare when that thing inevitably happens again?
In behavioral stuff like smoking, I find a frequent thing is everything will go well so long everything in your life is going well. And then the first time you have a stressor, first time you just have a bad day, you're going to reach for the tool that usually makes you feel better. So you have to plan to have bad days, because guess what? Part of being a person means some days are going to be bad.
And that's why people relapse generally, because something in their life got hard. Maybe their work schedule got too crazy, or they had a lost loved one or something like that. So we have to know, okay, so if I have a really tough spot, what am I going to do? This is an example that I use. When my father was dying, I had not smoked in many years at that point. I remember walking down this stairwell and there were a bunch of nurses standing together. I was visiting him at the hospital and these nurses were standing together smoking. And I thought for 1 second, wow, I would enjoy doing that because my father's dying and I'm really unhappy. But then I walked myself through it. Okay. So I would have that first drag and it might be good or interesting or whatever. But immediately after that, I would smell it on my fingers. I would feel ashamed. I'd feel embarrassed. A lot of the reason why my father died was because he smoked cigarettes for a really long time. So I would feel embarrassed. I would feel ashamed. A lot of my professional career has been built around the fact that I have smoked before and I don't now. And I would be giving all of that up. I think it's also looking at what are things that are going to keep me on track. We're going to talk about the biggest reasons why we hardly achieve our goals from Habitify. Getting things done requires two basic components: defining what was done, meaning the outcome, and doing things like taking action. Setting goals is a roller coaster ride for many of us. The excitement that it generates when we ambitiously set our goals pushed us up to the sky, only to zoom back down to nowhere. Where does the problem lie? We fail to achieve our goals because we fail to have a perception of it, which then mentally paralyzes us to the other positive aspects of it. In fact, many people get frozen at the very first step. What gets measured gets managed, says the famous management guru, Peter Drucker. We discussed that if our goals are measurable, they're easier to follow through. This brings us to the next biggest challenge of why people fail. It's either their goals are not measurable or they fail to track their progress. So the thing you were talking about is having that calendar that helps me to know. In psychological studies, merely measuring the intent of a person to behave in a particular way makes them do it. Have you heard of David Allen, the author of Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity?
No.
David Allen was a guy who really inspired me when I didn't know that I had ADHD. My boss had the CDs of this book, and he, who also had really severe ADHD, would sit in our shared office and listen to David Allen. And David Allen helped me on a regular basis by reminding me of goals. So what he talks about is you don't actually do a project, you can only do action steps related to the project. You want to be adding value as you think about projects and people, not simply reminding yourself that these things exist. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. The secret of getting started is breaking your complex and overwhelming tasks into small, manageable tasks, and then starting with the first one. That is something that our friend Mark Twain said.
Is Mark Twain our friend? That's cool.
He didn't like Mormons, and he understands how to set goals. So I'm going to consider him a personal friend. Another quote from David Allen's book is, "Pick battles big enough to matter, small enough to win." Jonathan Kozol said that. This is a Leonardo da Vinci quote that I found in Getting Things Done. "I am rather like a mosquito in a nudist camp. I know what I want to do, but I don't know where to begin. Every now and then, go away and have a little relaxation. To remain constantly at work will diminish your judgment. Go some distance away because work will be in perspective and a lack of harmony is more readily seen."
I doubt that Leonardo da Vinci said that.
I think he did because he knows about nudist camps. This is my favorite quote from the book. "Things rarely get stuck because of a lack of time. They get stuck because the doing of them has not been defined." So the thing I really liked about David Allen is that he would do the small chunk thing. And so we would kind of base our office goals on this theory. Let's say that my goal is to make $1 million next year. I imagine depositing the money in my account, but how did it get there? I could start subheadings with that. And one of them would be start my women's summer camp, get this podcast monetized, create a hypnotherapy training workshop, finish my book. And then there's subheadings on that. So for getting my summer camp going, one thing I could do, because I thought about this recently, is find summer camps that have off seasons and find out what the rates are in my neighborhood, in my local area for off season booking of summer camps.
Speaking of incremental goals, one thing that I learned at Nike is that 50% of sportswear clothing that is purchased is never worn.
Yeah.
The stuff we were making was so expensive. And when I was buying stuff, one of my things has always been, if I'm buying stuff for fitness, it doesn't count against any money goals. I'm never going to restrict myself, which is why it's easy to buy things like a Strava account or a Peloton. But 50% of all clothing, and also 50% of all clothing, period, stop, never gets worn. People just buy things to buy it and they put it in their closet. These are some of the small, easy things that are easy to do leading up to the hard thing, which is run 3 times a week or lift weights on a regular schedule.
And something that I used to do when I was working out inside a gym, I would reward myself with things like a new sports bra. So the big ticket items were a thing that I had to earn.
When I wanted to do comedy, I bought myself a present, which was a pair of diamond earrings. And I said, well, I'm not going to wear these until I've done stand up. And what's hilarious about that is that
you've never worn them.
And I never wore them again. Ultimately, the reward is I'm familiar with comedy. I feel good. I have a skill set. I'm going to the gym. My fitness is increased. I can do things with my body I couldn't do before, but having those little rewards also helps. Here's a document on vague goals. And this is easy to do. In general, I want to be more fit. I want to spend more time with my family. I want to work on my podcast. People fail at their goals because they lack a path to follow. They know what they want to achieve, but they have no idea how to get there. Here's that monkey ladder again. As humans, our need to be loved and accepted by others are quite often drives our goalposts, but it's a poor North Star. If you follow the path of gaining approval, as opposed to the one of being true to your heart, you'll end up lost and mostly unfulfilled. That's a weird one.
If it's an external goal versus an internal goal,
Right.
you'll end up feeling unfulfilled.
Another impediment could be that you strive for more perfection than you do progress. Quote, I'll start a YouTube channel once I have the perfect lights and camera set up and know everything about editing. It's the fear of failure and wanting everything to be perfect that stops us. Maybe as kids, we were told not to make mistakes, and so we struggle to move forward. You and I have experienced this listening to our first episodes.
They're hot garbage. Even
Right.
though they're our most popular ones, they are hot garbage.
We hadn't learned the things that we've learned now. We haven't learned the things about editing that we know now. When you want to do something creative, you just got to jump in and do it and know that doing the thing teaches you how to do the thing. I guess people are embarrassed by the idea of not doing something perfectly, but everybody who has ever done anything, every expert was once an amateur, and you got to carry that knowledge around with you.
Well, I remember you telling me this, and I've given this advice to my clients who want to start a TikTok account. You're going to be hot garbage at the beginning, but if you just keep making more TikToks, you'll be better at it. Because that's something that I've been experiencing a lot, because TikTok is now saying, hey, remember this TikTok you made a year ago?
Right.
And I'm like, wow, I really had no idea when to set a start time and an end time for words. And so it would say incoming stitch, and it would just be on my face the whole TikTok. I figured out, hey, you can actually fix that. But it was about just getting things moving. And as I got things moving, I realized, okay, I need to have a lapel mic. I need to probably work on the lighting. I need to maybe increase the speed in which I speak.
If you had set all these goals for yourself that you were going to have everything done just perfectly, you never would have recorded TikTok 1.
No.
Another thing I really like about TikTok, and it does make me feel good to know that my advice has gone on to other people. Another thing that is good about TikTok is having audience response. Your audience will teach you how to do stuff. You will have success with one thing, then you'll change it. You will have not success. You're like, oh, okay.
You'll notice, oh, that one really worked and that one really didn't.
A feedback loop can be very helpful. On the other hand, I do want to say, I think it's important to set goals as much as we're saying, oh, these are all the wrong ways to set goals or the wrong things to set goals about. If you set no goals, you're not going to accidentally achieve anything.
But I would say, I want to start a TikTok account. Okay, so what's step 1? It would probably be setting it up, coming up with a username and setting it up. Okay, so what's step 2? Step 2 is thinking about, what do I want the content to look like? What is the purpose of this thing? I have a client right now who I think would have a really amazing TikTok account, but she's looking to lose 30 pounds, have her camera work all figured out, have the lighting figured out, figure out the editing process and all that stuff. And she's just not going to do it. And we've talked about it multiple times, because I've told her, okay, well, here's the things that I've seen that seem to be working in this area that you're talking about. Because I do watch an insane amount of TikToks.
A lot of TikToks.
I wish that I could be monetized for that somehow. But I've told her these are the things that need to start, but she's determined that first she has to lose a certain amount of weight and all these other things. And so she's never going to get to the goal.
Let me take a moment and speak specifically to the idea of, I'm going to do this once I lose X amount of weight, because that is a great way to sit on the sidelines of your own life. And
it's a great way to sabotage anything good that you could ever do.
Yeah, I've done it to myself. I'm going to record an album. I'm going to do this appearance. I'm going to make this video when my body is how I want it. You can't let that stop you, because it's like thing 1 to stop you.
Because chances are pretty good, if your body's been a certain way for an extended period of time, it's going to keep being that way. Right. When I started my TikTok account, I was a little nervous that people were going to say things about my body. And so far, I had that one guy who said I was an Essie lard of fat. There we go. And I had another guy who was trying to make a joke, I guess. I'm not sure, who said that I looked a lot like the actress from Misery. And I said, thank you so much. She's such an incredible actor.
And she's beautiful. She's not always dressed up like the lady from Misery. A friend of mine had a great opportunity to go on television that came up kind of quickly. And the first thing she said was, should I be trying to lose 8 pounds? And that's how we've been trained as women and as performers, that oh, you need to go on a crash diet. And I have gotten into the habit of talking to myself and saying, the body that I have now is the body that I'm taking to Sketchfest. The body that I have now is the body that's going to do this other thing with me, because that is the body that I have.
Right. Removing barriers to entry is a really important piece. Letting go of perfectionism. That's an AA phrase, progress, not perfection. Because I think if I'm trying to be perfect all the time, I'm just going to give up. So, Virginia, in closing, what are your final thoughts on this intriguing and varied topic?
I think it is a hilarious part of human nature that every year we think that the changing of the clocks and the turning of the calendar and the regeneration of our own cells is going to magically give us the ability to be totally different people than we have been our whole lives. It is a sweet kind of optimism. That being said, I do think if you want to change something about your life, if something is making you unhappy about yourself, or you think you could be happier, you've gone over some great building blocks to setting goals, to making lasting change. Now, there's many goals that I have not achieved in my life, but there's a lot that I have. And the first thing that I had to do was set them. Laura, what are your final thoughts on this topic?
Setting goals is kind of my bread and butter. So I have a lot of thoughts on it. The thing that I've learned in this journey is don't put off to tomorrow what you can do today, and try to take these big, unwieldy, complicated goals and do one step. If I want to go to the gym, step one is I probably need to get a gym membership. The first goal is look up gyms in my area, make it small, achievable, measured, etc., and then build from there. Because I think when I look at my life, even starting this podcast, I remember my sister threw up a lot of barriers to entry when we started. And I said, we're just going to try and see what happens. We're going to go with that. And that is why we are on episode 8 million at this point.
Right. And we are recording episode probably 70 because my barriers were I don't have time and it will make me crazy. And then what has happened is that I'm crazy and I have no time.
And I think I found little solves to some of your concerns. We've gone from there because let me just tell you, this was not my first podcast. I've actually recorded 15 episodes of a podcast with someone that never got distributed or anything else, was never even edited, I don't think. We just met and did this very loose thing and nothing ever came of it because we were expecting her husband to do stuff and other things to happen. And so that podcast is dead in the water. Then I had another podcast idea with a friend who couldn't schedule with me. So this was not my first attempt. I wanted to take this relationship that I've built for almost 50 years with this person that I know really well, and I wanted to do something and see what happened. And I think that's what we've done. And I think what we have created is pretty incredible.
I'm very proud of it as well. Laura, if people want to find you on the internet, if they want to reach out to you professionally or non-professionally, where can they do it?
If they want to reach out to me non-professionally, they could go to I Am Laura Ryan on my TikTok account and watch all my silly, ridiculous TikToks that have very little to do with anything, but they do mention the podcast a lot. They could also go to our shared Instagram account. My sister's a therapist. In addition, if you want to reach out to do therapeutic services or find out more about how to get yourself through your goals, you could go to lauraryan.org. Virginia Jones, if somebody wants to find out more about your comedy career, how would they go about doing that?
I would encourage anyone the slightest bit interested to visit me at badinia.com, Badinia. If you live in the Pacific Northwest and would like to see a show, I promote those on my Instagram, which is Badinia. If you are interested in seeing my TikToks, of which there are many, that is also at Badinia. If you would like to write us some advice, a compliment, question, show idea, you can write us at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. If you are interested in hiring two very well-spoken performers, one of whom has a lot of degrees, you can hit us up at hireus@mysistersatherapist.com. We will speak at your
rodeo
pet show.
Yeah, we will open for the Westminster Dog Show. we will be there for your calf roping contest.
We will raise money for your monkey sanctuary.
If you have questions about how to find a monkey sailor hat, just contact us directly.
We've got some real specific expertise.
If you want to sell your monkey sailor hats through us, you can go to hire us and My Sister's the Therapist.
Good. Now, Laura, this is the part of the show where you sometimes read a nice review. Do you have one to share with us this week?
I have an email from one of our listeners. They wrote, to hello@mysisterstherapist.com. My wife and I love your show. Today, my wife requested that we watch Trading Places based on the many references in the podcast. Thank you for your service, Joey. Thank you, Joey.
Joey. I hope that she enjoyed it. I know that she doesn't probably enjoy it as much as we do, but it's a really well-made film.
There are very few people, aside from my best friend, who enjoy Trading Places as much as we do. I did have a special win this year. My son is at the maturity level where he could watch the whole movie from start to finish for the very first time.
Amazing. Congratulations.
And Billy Ray Valentine thanks you.
And he also says, we can make it, baby.
Me and you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.